The lonely cabin. The cabin stood on the edge of the wilderness, weathered by storms and softened by time, much like the man who called it home. Ethan Ward lived there with only his daughter for company, a girl who had never seen the world she moved so gracefully through. Clara's eyes were pale, untouched by light since birth, yet her spirit held a quiet brightness that kept her father from surrendering to despair. Every morning, Ethan rose before dawn, splitting wood, tending the fire, and preparing the small meals that sustained them. Clara, though blind, insisted on helping. She sorted herbs by touch and memory, hummed to herself while stirring the pot, and asked questions about the forest she could never see. Ethan answered patiently, but his voice often carried the weary weight of a man stretched thin between duty and longing. The memory of his late wife haunted him. Her laughter lingered like smoke in the rafters, her absence a wound that never healed. Ethan had promised her he would protect Clara, raise her with love, and never let the world's cruelty darken her heart. He had kept that vow, yet loneliness pressed on him like winter frost, silent and relentless. One afternoon, while searching for game deeper in the forest than usual, Ethan's ears caught a sound that made his blood chill. A sharp cry, muffled, human, but pained. He followed the sound cautiously, hand near the handle of his hunting knife. The woods were not forgiving, and men had learned to be wary of what lurked in its shadows. The cry came again, desperate now. Pushing through the underbrush, Ethan found the source. A young Comanche woman, her leg clamped in the iron jaws of a bear trap. Blood stained the ground around her, and her hands trembled as she struggled uselessly against the cruel device. Her eyes, dark and fierce despite her agony, snapped toward him with a mixture of fear and defiance. For a moment, Ethan froze. Old warnings stirred in his mind, tales told by settlers about raids, vengeance, and the danger of crossing paths with the tribes. But before him was no enemy, only a wounded soul fighting for breath. "Hold still," he said, voice steady though his heart raced. She did not answer, only clenched her jaw as he knelt beside her. With effort, Ethan pried open the trap's iron teeth and pulled her leg free. She gasped, collapsing onto the earth, her pride battling with the pain written across her face. Ethan tore a strip from his own shirt, binding the wound with practiced hands. "You'll bleed less this way," he murmured. The woman's lips trembled before she found words. "Why help me?" Her accent was thick, but her meaning clear. Ethan met her gaze, surprised by the intensity there. "Because no one deserves to die in steel meant for beasts." He lifted her carefully, cradling her weight as though she were fragile glass. She resisted at first, pushing weakly at his chest, but exhaustion won. Her head rested against his shoulder, and he carried her back toward the cabin, knowing Clara would hear the story in his footsteps before he spoke it. When they arrived, Clara hurried to the doorway, her cane tapping the threshold. "Father? Who is with you?" "A friend who needs our help," Ethan replied, setting the woman gently upon a bed of furs near the fire. Clara tilted her head, listening. Her voice is soft, like the wind in the pines. The woman, Naya, as Ethan would later learn, watched father and daughter with guarded eyes. She seemed caught between gratitude and suspicion, as though unsure if this unexpected kindness concealed another trap. Ethan busied himself with boiling water, his hands steady though his mind churned. He had brought danger into his home, he knew. Samuel Holt, his late wife's brother, would condemn this act of mercy if he ever learned of it. The settlers distrusted outsiders, especially the Comanche. And yet, Ethan could not ignore the stirring inside him, the old, restless ache that had grown sharper since his wife's death. As night fell, the fire painted warm light across Naya's face. Her features were strong, but her eyes softened when she noticed Clara reaching blindly for her hand. She allowed the girl's touch, and for the first time since her rescue, her expression gentled. Ethan watched, torn between relief and unease. He had meant only to save a life, but already something was shifting within his home, within himself. The wilderness outside remained silent, but inside the cabin, a new story had begun, one that would test his vows, his desires, and the fragile balance of the life he had built. And as Ethan lay awake that night, listening to Clara's even breathing and Naya's restless stirrings, he realized the peace of his lonely existence had ended the moment he opened that bear trap. The forbidden spark. Naya remained in the cabin, her wound healing slowly under Ethan's care. Days blurred into weeks, each sunrise finding her more restless, yet reluctant to leave. She was not used to dependence, and every gesture of kindness seemed to unsettle her. Still, she accepted Clara's gentle company, the girl's questions disarming her pride. Clara often sat beside her, weaving stories of a world she could not see but felt deeply. "Your voice," Clara said one morning as Naya sang a low melody in her own tongue. "It paints colors for me. Red and gold. Father never sings." Ethan, tending the fire nearby, gave a short laugh. "She's right. My singing would scare the birds." Naya's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Then perhaps it is good I stay, so she hears something sweet." The word struck Ethan harder than he admitted. He had long forgotten the warmth of a woman's voice in his home, the small softnesses that stitched together daily life. Clara's joy at Naya's presence was undeniable, yet for Ethan, joy came laced with unease. Desire, sharp and uninvited, stirred beneath the surface of his duty. That unease deepened when Samuel Holt rode up to the cabin one afternoon. Dust clung to his coat, his expression severe as he dismounted. He was a man of scripture, rigid in his beliefs, and his sister's death had only hardened his resolve to keep Ethan tethered to memory. "You've been spoken of in town," Samuel said without preamble. His eyes cut toward Naya, who sat upright despite her injury. "They say you shelter a Comanche. Is it true?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "She was caught in a trap. Would you have me leave her to die?" Samuel's gaze burned with accusation. "Charity is one thing. Inviting sin into your home is another. Think of your wife. Think of Clara. What lesson do you teach her bringing in heathen blood?" Clara stepped forward, her small hand brushing Samuel's sleeve. "She's kind, uncle. She sings to me. Father only saved her life." Samuel's face softened for the girl, then hardened again as he looked back to Ethan. "Your duty is to protect this child, not expose her to scandal. Remember who you are, Ethan. Remember who you were to my sister." When Samuel left, tension lingered like smoke in the room. Naya's dark eyes searched Ethan's face. "I do not wish to bring you trouble," she said quietly. "You didn't," Ethan replied, though his voice betrayed conflict. "The trouble was already here. It follows any man who dares to care." That night, after Clara had fallen asleep, Ethan sat awake by the fire. Naya stirred nearby, her features softened by the glow. She studied him with unguarded eyes, curiosity mingling with something deeper. "You look at me as though you carry a burden," she whispered. Ethan hesitated, then answered, "Perhaps I do. I swore I'd raise my daughter right, keep her safe. But since you came, I've felt things I thought were buried with my wife." The silence that followed was heavy, fragile. Naya lowered her gaze, her voice barely audible. "I am bound to you by debt, yet I feel it is more." Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. He wanted to reach across the small distance, to take her hand, to admit the truth rising unbidden within him. But Clara's breathing in the corner anchored him. His late wife's memory shadowed him. He said nothing. Instead, he rose, adding another log to the fire, as though flame might consume the restless longing inside him. Still, as Naya closed her eyes, the corner of her lips trembled with unspoken words. And Ethan, staring into the fire, knew the line he had vowed never to cross was already weakening. The wilderness outside slept, indifferent to his struggle. But inside the cabin, desire had found its spark, and neither vow nor warning would smother it easily. The breaking point. Clara was the first to notice the change, though she could not name it. She heard it in the pauses between her father's words, felt it in the way his hand lingered too long on silence when Naya's voice filled the room. Blindness sharpened her senses, and though she did not see the glances exchanged across the fire, she heard the rhythm of breath quicken when Naya was near. One evening, As Ethan mended a broken snare, Clara asked suddenly, "Father, why does your voice sound different when you speak to her?" Ethan's hand stilled. The question struck deeper than the knife he held. He glanced at Naya, who looked away, her face shadowed by the flames. "You imagine things, Clara," he said softly. But the girl frowned. "No, I hear it. It is warmer, like when you used to speak to Mother." Ethan's chest tightened. He had guarded his heart for years, and yet his daughter's innocence had pierced straight through his defenses. He could not answer her, so he returned to his work, the silence stretching unbearably. The next day, Samuel returned. His boots crunched over frost as he strode to the cabin door, voice stern before he even crossed the threshold. "Ethan Ward, you dishonor my sister's memory." Ethan rose from his seat, jaw set. "You've said enough." Samuel's gaze flicked toward Naya, who stood tall despite her limp. "Do you not see what temptation has done? This woman does not belong here. She will ruin you, and worse, she will ruin Clara." Naya's hand clenched at her side, but she spoke with quiet dignity. "I never sought to stay. He chose to save me. Blame me if you must, but do not curse a kindness." Samuel's lip curled. "Kindness or weakness? Ethan, you are breaking your vows with every glance." The words stung because they carried truth. When Samuel finally left, slamming the door behind him, Ethan's chest felt hollow. He turned to Naya, their eyes locking in a silence that spoke of shared pain, shared defiance. That night, the storm outside mirrored the turmoil within. Rain lashed against the cabin walls, and thunder rolled like judgment from above. Clara slept uneasily, her small frame curled beneath blankets. Ethan sat by the fire, staring into the flames until Naya's quiet presence drew him back. "You are torn between two worlds," she whispered. Ethan's throat tightened. "I'm torn between what I promised and what I feel." Naya knelt beside him, her hand brushing his. The touch was tentative, yet ignited a fire he could no longer smother. "Tell me what you feel," she said, her voice trembling. His restraint collapsed. "I feel alive again when you're near. I feel the ache of years lifted. I feel—" He broke off, ashamed, yet desperate. "I feel as though loving you betrays her, and yet not loving you betrays myself." Tears shimmered in Naya's eyes, though she held his gaze. "And me? Am I only debt to you? A life you saved?" "No," Ethan said fiercely, seizing her hand. "You are more than that. You are the breath I thought I'd lost. You are the song Clara hears, the warmth I cannot deny." Their lips met, tentative at first, then certain. The kiss was not of lust alone, but of grief, longing, and the dangerous joy of two souls defying the walls built around them. For a moment, the storm outside ceased to matter. But innocence has ears sharper than reason. Clara stirred, her eyes unseeing, but her heart perceiving. She heard the shift in breath, the tremor in her father's voice when he pulled away. "Father," she whispered into the dark, "why do you sound like you've left me?" The words shattered him more than Samuel's judgment ever could. He turned toward his daughter, guilt flooding his chest. Naya withdrew, her face shadowed, the warmth of the kiss fading into cold silence. Ethan reached for Clara's hand, but her expression, though blind, was stricken. She could not see the betrayal, but she felt it, like a knife pressed quietly against the bond she had always trusted. The fire burned low, casting long shadows across the cabin. Ethan knew nothing would ever return to the way it was. He had crossed a line, and his daughter's voice, trembling with hurt, proved the cost of his desire. The cost of desire. The morning after the storm broke heavy and silent, as though the forest itself sensed the fracture inside the cabin. Clara sat quietly by the hearth, her hands folded in her lap. She did not speak, but Ethan felt the weight of her silence like a stone on his chest. Naya moved about softly, preparing herbs for her leg, but her eyes lingered on Clara with unease. The girl's innocence had always been her anchor in the cabin. Now it felt like a mirror reflecting guilt neither of them could escape. At last, Clara spoke. "Father, do you still love Mother?" Her voice was calm, but behind it trembled something fragile. Ethan knelt before her, taking her hands. "Always, Clara. Nothing will change that. Then why? She whispered, her unseeing eyes turning toward Naya. Does it sound like your heart belongs elsewhere? Ethan's throat constricted. He wanted to deny it, to shield her from truths too heavy for her age. But lies would only deepen the wound. Because hearts, he said slowly, do not always remain where we command them. They move, even when we wish them still. Clara's lips trembled, but she nodded, as though she had expected no other answer. The tension broke later that day when Samuel returned, his voice sharp as he pushed through the door. The town whispers grow louder, Ethan. They say you've lost your senses, giving your home to a savage. They say you betrayed my sister's memory. I will not stand by while you drag Clara down this path. Ethan rose, fire flashing in his eyes. And what path is that, Samuel? One where I deny the living to worship the dead? One where I teach Clara that duty is a chain and not a choice? Samuel's face darkened. You dishonor us all. This infidelity of the heart will ruin you. Ruin her. He gestured toward Clara, who sat silent, tears glistening on her cheeks. Ethan turned to his daughter, his voice softening. Clara, tell me truly, do you wish her gone? If you say it, I will send her away tonight. The room held its breath. Clara's fingers twisted together, her young heart warring with love for her father and fear of losing him. Finally, she whispered, I don't want her gone, but I don't want you to leave me either. Naya stepped forward then, her dignity unshaken despite the tears in her eyes. I will go. Better I walk away than bring this house to ruin. But Ethan caught her hand, his grip fierce. No, I've lived too long in shadows. I won't lose the light I've found. His voice steadied. Clara, I will never leave you, but I cannot deny what I feel. To do so would make me a hollow man. Samuel spat in disgust. Then you've chosen shame. He stormed out, his condemnation echoing long after the door closed. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of the fire. Clara turned her face toward her father, her expression pained yet resolute. If you love her, then, I will try to love her too. Tears burned Ethan's eyes as he gathered his daughter into his arms. Naya knelt beside them, her hand brushing Clara's hair with tenderness. For the first time, Clara did not flinch. That night, the three of them sat together, the storm inside slowly quieting. The world beyond their cabin would remain hostile. Samuel would spread his bitterness, and whispers would not cease. But within these walls, a new bond had formed, fragile, imperfect, yet alive. Ethan knew the path ahead would not be easy. Love born of defiance rarely was. Yet as Naya leaned against him and Clara rested her head on his shoulder, he felt something he had not known in years. Peace, however fleeting. The fire burned low, casting gentle light on faces marked by loss, hope, and the courage to begin again. Outside, the wilderness waited with its endless trials, but inside, a choice had been made. And in that choice, scandalous to some, salvational to others, Ethan Ward found the strength to live not in memory, but in love.